Dear friends, you're in the Military of Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 24th of April of 2026. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where the Russians during the previous 24 hours managed to improve their position significantly along the entire line of combat contact. And first let's talk about the most important direction, about the Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Russians seems to me managed to break through Ukraine's defense to the east of the city of Orekhov. And these are the changes on the ground during the previous 2 days. This is the end of the 22nd of April of 2026. This is exactly the moment when everything started, when the Russians, after very powerful artillery preparation, managed to break through Ukraine's defense and answer to the most important settlements in this area, the settlement of Gulai-Polska and the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. And these are the changes between the 22nd and the 23rd of April of 2026. The Russians managed to improve their position significantly. As you can see, once again, they answered the settlement of Gulai-Polska from the east, and up to 20% or even more, up to 30% of the settlement fell in Russia's hands. And this is the changes on the ground between the 22nd and the 23rd of April in the area of the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. As for this village, the Russians managed to take under complete control up to 30% of the village. The next day, we received the most important updates. As for the 24th of April of 2026, the Russians managed to answer the southeastern parts of the settlement of Novoselovka, and we have a video that confirmed this information. In this video, we can see the Ukrainian FPV drone that was attacking Russian forces and the Russian units in the most southeastern parts of the settlement of Novoselovka. Here we can see lots of FPV drone attacks, and one of these episodes, for example, this attack took place right exactly at this point, which means that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to outflank the settlement of Gulai-Polska and to answer the southeastern parts of the settlement of Novoselovka. But the most important thing is that, telling the truth, I'm not 100% sure that the Russians haven't captured the settlement of Gulai-Polska. You know that everything is possible. The Russians could have already captured and taken under complete control this settlement, but the Russians decided to keep this information a secret because the Ukrainians may counterattack. The Ukrainians may counterattack and to raise a flag somewhere in the northern part of the settlement, showing another something like a false separation with the purpose to show the flag and to establish the flag, and that's it. So it seems that the Russians first decided to maybe even take the village, take the settlement, then to improve the positions around the settlement, and only then to announce. But now we believe that most likely the Russians will announce control over one of these villages, probably during the May holidays, which are going to start very, very soon. Furthermore, we received another video, very important video along this tree line, and here we can see how Ukrainians were retreating from the area of these two villages, and Ukrainians are not able to use vehicles for this evacuation purpose. The only thing they can do is to move on their own. In here we can see a Russian drone that was hunting and searching for the Ukrainians that left the settlement of Novoselovka and that were moving in the northern direction. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were moving along this tree line, most likely in the northern direction, with the purpose to answer this intersection, and then to begin moving further in the western direction with the purpose to quit the encirclement and to escape this cauldron of Gulai-Polska Novoselovska. But the Russian FPV drone was moving from the south in the northern direction, and the Russian drone attacked the Ukrainians somewhere at this point. So the Ukrainians began retreating from these two villages, which is another proof that most likely in coming days the Minister of Defense, as well as the Group of Forces East, will confirm the updates about control over these two villages. And if this happens, then we can say that the eastern, northeastern and eastern Orekhov flank has collapsed completely. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the western Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Ukrainians continue concentrated their forces in the area of the villages of Magdalinovka, Zapasnaya, Novoboykovskaya, Novoyakovlevka. The Ukrainians are trying to concentrate and to probably to concentrate their troops with infantry, to concentrate their troops with these in these through these fields, through these tree lines, because the Ukrainians most likely expect that in 2 weeks the Russians will launch their major offensive operation in the northern direction with the purpose to break through Ukraine's defense along the river of Konska and to answer the siege of Zaporizhzhia from the southeast. So everything is ready from the Russian side for the Russian major offensive operation, and this major offensive operation will only intensify during the next 2 or 3 weeks. So of course, from the Ukrainian position, they're trying to stabilize the situation, they're trying to break and to ruin Russia's plans. And during the previous days, we received lots of videos of how Ukrainians using drones were attacking positions of the Russian forces in the southern Zaporizhzhia direction and in the southern Donetsk region. Here we can see lots of explosions. Here we can see how Ukrainians were discovering warehouses, ammo depots, and different positions and temporary deployment points of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And the most important, the Ukrainians were seeking for positions of vehicles and concentration of armored vehicles of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And when they were finding these objects, they were attacking them with drones, sometimes using 2 or 3 attacks just within one building. So lots of explosions took place right in the area where the Russians concentrated their troops before the beginning of a major offensive. Another video is coming from the city of Donetsk, and here we can see the consequences of attack that took place a day ago. Here we can see that the building was significantly damaged by the armed forces of Ukraine, and the sources are saying that as a result of attack, a building was damaged and the Russians suffered huge losses. So this is the moment when the Ukrainians were attacking this building. This video was published yesterday. According to information we have, this attack took place on the 22nd of April of 2026, and as we can see, the Ukrainians used probably a dozen of drones just to attack one building, just to attack certain apartments of this building, and as you can see, lots of explosions were recorded. So the Russians and the Ukrainians are doing everything they can with the purpose to improve their positions before the beginning of a major battle for the siege of Zaporizhzhia. And the most important thing, according to different monitoring sources, according to different military experts, during the upcoming night between the 24th and the 25th of April of 2026, we can wait for another massive attack from the Russian side. And this massive attack could be the biggest one, probably even since the beginning of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. I'm not sure whether the Russians are going to use just a wave of attack. Most likely we will see 3 or even 4 waves of attacks, and that would be stretched between the dates. The Russians most likely may start this upcoming night between the 24th and the 25th of May. They will continue during the 25th of May, and most likely they will only finish somewhere during the day of the 26th of April of 2026. So these 3 days we'll see lots of attacks from the Russian side, most likely.
Jeg slår uden pause, uden du tænker over det, som mit lille.
And the sources are saying that the Russians will attack the city of Kiev, the city of Zaporizhzhia, the city of Dnipro, the Kharkiv region, the Sumy region, the city of Kryvyi Rog, most likely the city of Odessa. Some sources are saying that maybe even the Russians will attack the western parts of Ukraine, the city of Lvov, because these days, most likely the Ukrainians, because they understand and they know what exactly the Russians are going to do, which means that most likely in coming days, the Ukrainians will start bringing additional forces, air defense forces, and will deploy them in the western parts of Ukraine. So that is why the Russians will have these targets as primary. As for the massive attacks, we have already discussed the situation during the previous video. The Ukrainians attacked the territory of Russia, but the Russians are saying that the Ukrainians used just 10 drones to do this. The Russians during the previous night also used just 109 drones. When talking about the Ukraine attack, we haven't received anything on this matter. Probably we received just one video, but this is not the video of consequences of the previous night's attack. This is the video where we can see the consequences of the attack that took place, that was made by the Ukrainians on the 18th of April, and here we can see that as a result of the attack that took place on the 18th of April of 2026, Here we can see the consequence of attack on some facility that took place in the area of the city by the name of Novokuybышevsk. And this attack took place on the 18th of April around the settlement by the name of Samara. Let's improve the number of updates and let's take a look at these strikes. Yes, this is the video these are the pictures, and this is the video that was published right exactly during that date. Black smoke over the settlement. So that's it. Nothing more from the Ukrainian side. Probably the Ukrainians have some problems with logistics with the drones because they have reduced the number of drones they use from day to day significantly. Probably maybe the reduction, maybe the reason why both the Russians and the Ukrainians reduced the number of drones is also related to the prisoner exchange process that today took place along the border between Ukraine and the Republic of Belarus. The sources are saying that both the Russians and the Ukrainians returned 193 troops on their territories. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Slaviansk-Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important updates from this area. The Russians continue their offensive operation, especially in the Slaviansk direction, especially in the Slaviansk-Kramatorsk direction, and during the previous day, we received significant changes. So this is the end of the 22nd of April of 2026. The Russians began improving their positions along Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. The Russians were bombing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine on the Ukrainian side of Canal, trying to pin down the Ukrainians. By the end of the 23rd of April, we received first changes on the ground that were provided by neutral mappers and pro-Russian sources. And by the end of the 24th of April of 2026, we have received this map where we can see that the Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups managed to improve their position significantly. And basically, the entire Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal to the west of the villages of Minkovka, Golubovka, Privilya is already under complete and total control of the Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. And as we discussed during the previous videos, the Russians may use these territories for further offensive operation on the Ukrainian side of Canal with the purpose to attack the siege of Kramatorsk, or at least to improve their positions along Canal, creating something like a buffer zone, like say in 3-5 kilometers before the end of the battle for the settlement of Alexandrovka. So this is a very important situation because, of course, one thing is to take under complete control the Nikolaevka pocket, which is located between the rivers of Seversky Donetsk and the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, but other thing is to cross Canal and then to continue offensive operation further. It seems that the Russians decided to resolve this issue and to find the answer to this question before the end of the battle for the Nikolaevka pocket. So they decided to create a bridgehead on the Ukrainian side of Canal before they finished the battle for the settlements of Alexandrovka and Nikolaevka. And it seems that this is something that the Ukrainians didn't expect. As for the Slaviansk direction, the most important updates are coming from the forest along the Seversky Donetsk River. The Russians began offensive operation in this area, which most likely in the end will lead to the situation that the Ukrainians during the next 2 or 3 days would be forced to fall back from the settlement of Kryvaya Luka. Otherwise, they would be caught by the Russians in Koldrun. As for the Liman direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything special. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous day, we received lots of updates. So we have already covered them. Once again, the most important thing is that the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces announced a complication of the situation in the Kupiansk area and dismissed the commanders of the 14th Brigade and 10th Corps. So this is the 14th Brigade. This brigade was the core brigade in this direction, was basically responsible for the entire defense of many areas in this region. And now the Ukrainian sources are saying that this brigade, this 14th Brigade, was almost completely defeated during the battle for this territory, which means that currently there is a big problem with manpower and shortage of manpower in this region, and nobody knows for sure how exactly the Ukrainians are going to stabilize the situation in this region. But one thing is clear to us, that the battle for the Kupiansk agglomeration is coming to its logical end in coming days. Most likely we will adjust the map, and most likely, right, during the May's holidays we will receive lots of updates, lots of videos with Russian flags raised not just through the entire Kupiansk agglomeration. Most likely we'll see videos with flags from the city of Liman, from the city of Konstantinovka, of course from the city of Gulyapolska, Novoselovka, the village of Novoselovka. We'll see lots of flags, and we will adjust the map significantly within the next days. Now let's move further and let's talk about the northern directions. During the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything special. Probably the most important things are that the Russians continue their pressure in the area of the settlement of Miropolye. The Ukrainians control the situation, at least around the main evacuation lines and main evacuation roads. There are very heavy clashes in this area, and the Russians are saying that the Ukrainians introduced additional forces in this region. We have already discussed this, and now the Ukrainians are trying to counterattack with the purpose to stabilize the situation. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. And the most important thing, of course, right now is oil prices. The US authorities managed to stabilize oil market by the end of the trade financial day, and it seems that these are the prices, or